My first poem would be We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt that we pay to human guile, with torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We sing, but oh great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We smile, but oh the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise while we wear the mask. Thank you.
So this is the first stanza of the poem, and there is a lot of symbolism in this first stanza, beginning with the mask. We can interpret the mask as people, normal people, everyday, people wearing a mask, hiding their authentic selves from the world. But when we look and read the background of the author of this poem, which is Paul Dunbar, we can interpret the mask as a symbol of how African Americans in the 20th century had to hide their identity. And arguably, we can say that they still have to hide their identity in 2021. That is a different story. So it's a symbol. We can interpret it as a symbol for African Americans hiding their true selves to fit into society's standards. The next line we can analyze is the debt we pay to human guile. And guile means deception. So human guile, the debt we pay to human guile. Hiding your true self to fit society's standards. In this case, African Americans have to pay a debt in order to fit in. They have to deceive society in order to fit in. So they have to wear this mask. The next stanza says, why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. There's figurative language in this second stanza. In counting all our tears and sighs. First of all, wow, that is a very beautiful line. And the speaker is revealing what is behind the mask. Behind the mask, there is pain, there is suffering, there is strife, there is struggle. And the word count can be seen as just a sarcastic sort of way of a sarcastic word to use, a sarcastic term to use in this stanza. Because is it really possible to measure somebody's pain? Is it really possible to understand their struggle if you have not lived through what they have lived through? So can the world really understand African Americans' struggle? Can they understand, can white society in this case, understand the struggle and the pain and the suffering that they are facing? We smile, But, O great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise, we sing, but oh, the clay is vile. This is from the third stanza, and it's not complete. There's still another part, but these first three lines, there's obviously, the speaker is obviously alluding to Christ. Christ heals those in suffering. And I included a picture of Christ in this slide. And he's healing a blind person, I believe. And the speaker believes that Christ can save or alleviate their tortured soul. And the clay is vile is a metaphor for the earth. The clay is a metaphor for the earth. I'm sorry. And the clay is vile means that the world is a hostile place for African Americans. Society that African Americans are living in is not welcoming to them. So therefore, it is hostile. The last three lines of the third stanza say, beneath our feet and long the mile, but let the world dream otherwise, we wear the mask. There is figurative language in these last three lines. Along the mile, there's a long way to go for there to be any progress. And before I say anything further, beneath our feet references to the clay is vile, so the clay beneath the feet. And along the mile, they have to traverse a long mile of clay, in this case earth, to see any progress. So it's just a metaphor for there's still a long way to go. But let the world dream otherwise. Until white people recognize that there is an issue, and not just white people, but everyone in society recognize that there is an issue, there will be no progress. So they will dream that everything is okay, but it's not the case. So that's what he means. That's what the speaker means by the world. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. So in the end, they're going to wear the mask because the world is going to dream like there's nothing going on until they recognize that there is struggle. African Americans will still have to wear that mask. Discussion questions. So the first one is, why should the world, it's the line from the second stanza, why should the world be overwise and counting all cues and size? What do you think the purpose of this rhetorical question is? And what point do you think the speaker is trying to make? What does the speaker, and the second one is, does the speaker have a solution for removing the mask? Is there any way to overcome adversity according to the speaker?
One of the things I love in We Wear the Mask, and I've written about this before, is the way that there's a kind of off rhyme. He's going, eyes and lies, and then it's subtleties. I don't think he would have said subtle ties. So there's a way in which it doesn't quite match, and he's using rhyme to create these expectations that he then defies. And these myriad subtleties are pretty subtle. The rhyme goes away. And so to capture that kind of tension and expectation that mirrors the mask the poem is describing and encountering and inhabiting is really powerful. I think one of the things we have to remember is that poetry enacts. It doesn't describe things, at least good poetry. It doesn't, see from afar. Instead, it's in that moment, in that feeling. And for us, reading it all these years later, you see the ways that the mask doesn't quite fit. The mask and the rhyme aren't quite exact. And he's showing you behind the mask in that way, through the music of the poem, and the music and the meaning match. And I think that's very powerful. Not easy to do, easier to talk about than to do. And a line like we sing, it's 2 lines. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile, break beneath our feet, and long the mile. And that little gap between beneath our feet, a caesura we call it, a little pause, and long the mile. You can hear that mile, that distance, which is a distance of breath, but it's also a distance of so much struggle. And I think that's really showing you something that you hadn't seen before. At least I hadn't.
We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar. If you imagine how many poems it's given birth to, we couldn't even count it. I mean, it's that central, coming as it does at the turn of the century, that is 19th to 20th. And you could imagine that every Black poet afterwards has read this poem. Paul Laurence Dunbar was the first Black poet, when we think of, Black poet as a professional person, the Black poet who it's their job to be a poet. That was Paul Laurence Dunbar. And he was very much a formalist in the English tradition, but this was the whole majors and minors, to use his word, dichotomy in his work. He was proving, in order to get published, that he could write in that language, that he could use those forms, that he was absolutely fluent in that writing. And remember, this is someone who's, I'm pretty sure his parents were born into slavery. But certainly he is just a generation out of slavery. But at the same time, all of the Black vernacular that he grew up around, that, people were so inventive and gorgeous within that Black vernacular, that was a language that he had as well. And he never, and I think that it's been the privilege of Black poets of the century that followed him, to be able to be less tortured about having these 2 modes. That, whatever music we were hearing, spoken music, literary music, music from various literary traditions, we could hear it all at once. And our job was to make it new in its own way. But literally, a Dunbar couldn't have functioned as a professional poet at that time in that mode. So, we owe quite a debt of gratitude to him, and to see that also the way that, he has, to use his language in this poem, mouthed with myriad subtleties. This way of saying, and here blackface minstrelsy is everywhere. So he's saying what's beneath the mask. Both the mask of minstrelsy, but also of African-American performance of composure in the face of violence and racist insults. What does it mean to wear the mask that grins and lies? Wear the mask that says, yes, massa, that keeps on doing what you have to be doing. What does it mean to have that mask that keeps you safe, that lets you move in the world in the way that you need to? It's very, very, it's a huge concept that he's laying bare here. And so, that's why this is a very, very important poem unto itself, but also for the whole tradition that follows.